Okay, welcome back. We've got a fun one today. This is examining 1 Peter 3:19. Enoch went and preached to the spirits who were in prison. The purpose of today's video, we're going to look at an alternative way to interpret 1 Peter 3:19, which has been for a while a very confusing verse for all of us, I'm sure. We're going to read it from the Moffat New Translation, which you probably haven't heard of because it's not very popular, and this might be one of the reasons why it's not very popular, but we'll just take a read here. It says, "It was in the spirit that Enoch also went and preached to the imprisoned spirits who had disobeyed at the time when God's patience held out during the construction of the ark in the days of Noah, the ark by which only a few souls, 8 in all, were brought safely through the water." I'm also going to share Moffat's commentary a little bit later on. I'm going to provide links for all the resources today, but we'll start off with where I first saw this last night. I was reading an online article here. It was entitled "The Book of Enoch as the Background to 1 Peter, 2 Peter, and Jude." So I'll take us to that right now. So here's the article. This is just the end of the article. The whole article is very good, but this is specifically 1 Peter 3:19. It says, "Although there have been other interpretations of this passage in 1 Peter, it should not be overlooked that the corresponding reference to the saving of Noah in 2 Peter occurs directly after the reference to the angels imprisoned in Tartarus. This certainly has implications for how the author of 2 Peter understood the passage." And he goes on to say, this is very interesting, "There are further possibilities to explore. The awkward wording of verse 19, in which also he went, is just one letter away from containing the name Enoch in Greek. So all you have to do is add a chi to that phrase, and it produces and Enoch. It has been suggested that the original text had Enoch visiting the spirits in prison, creating a string of segues linking Christ's spiritual resurrection to Enoch's spiritual underworld voyage, Noah's flood, and finally baptism. Later, either accidentally or on purpose, the reference was eliminated by a minor scribal edit. Although the possibility is rarely acknowledged by scholars today and is considered unlikely, and it probably is unlikely, it has been adopted by at least 2 New Testament translations in the past. And we gave you the Moffat translation and also this AAT, an American translation, uses very similar wording. It adds Enoch there. And he also says that this is also mentioned in the marginal notes of the Jerusalem Bible. So I think that's very interesting, just again, for what it's worth. And he closes the article with this good summary statement here. He says, "It is remarkable that a book so influential on Christianity and so widely read by early church fathers could have been completely forgotten by most of Christendom over the centuries. Even today, Christians who have never heard of it know the tale of the fallen angels without knowing the source of such stories. Christian themes and concepts like the Son of Man, paradise, fallen angels, and the Day of Judgment all owe a great deal to Enochic literature. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church has done us a great favor by preserving this book in their Bible." Okay, so what I'm going to do is take us to our next resource. There are different options as to how to interpret what's going on, and I'm just going to share what John Piper has on his video here. Let me just make sure I'm sharing the sound there as well.
To be answered. So let me show you 3 views. Here's the way Tom Schreiner, in his good commentary, which I recommend, sums up these 3 views. And let's just take them one at a time. And I'll tell you right now that Dr. Schreiner tends to prefer number 3, and I have tended to lean towards number 1, although I don't have any very strong conviction about it. So number 1 is, this preaching to the spirits refers to Christ's preaching through Noah to those who lived while Noah was building the ark. For example, it says back in chapter 1, verse 10 to 11, "Concerning this salvation, the prophets who prophesied about the grace that was to be yours searched and inquired carefully, inquiring what person or time the Spirit of Christ in them, in the prophets, was indicating when he predicted the sufferings of Christ and the subsequent glory." So here's a clear example in the book of Peter that Christ in his spirit was back there speaking through the prophets, one of which was Noah, to the people and indicating the things that were to come. So that may be what is meant here when it says, in the spirit he went and proclaimed to the spirits who are now in prison because they refused to obey the preaching. That's the view that I have tended to lean toward. Here's a second view. It refers to Old Testament saints who died.
Okay, for the sake of this video, I think that the best parallel is that number 1, Christ is preaching through the prophets, But what they use as their example was Noah, but I think it's better to actually use that prophet as Enoch. And I'm going to go back to our notes here. Actually, I'm going to go to Moffat's commentary here. Here it is, verse 319. It was in the spirit that Enoch also went and preached to the imprisoned spirits. And his commentary here says, you remember, says Peter, how it was in the spirit, i.e., after his translation to heaven, that Enoch went down on this famous mission to the imprisoned spirits. One tradition placed this commission during Enoch's lifetime, saying Enoch, though a man, acted as God's envoy to the angels and was translated, says Irenaeus. So what Moffat's doing is make a comparison here. Some say that Enoch in his flesh went down there, and Moffat's going to take the position that in his spirit he went down there. And that's what he's saying. Irenaeus is saying he did that. Enoch did that in his flesh. So continuing, Peter seems to follow the other tradition, which gave Enoch the honor of being commissioned by God to go down from heaven to announce the sentence of final doom to the rebellious angels who had demoralized mankind so deeply that the flood had to be sent. They were spirits who had defiled themselves with the flesh and were punished by being imprisoned at the flood in chains eternal. In vain, they plead to God for mercy. At his bidding, Enoch went and preached doom to them, telling them from God that they were to have no peace nor forgiveness of sin, a grim preaching. Peter never uses this word in the epistle for preaching the gospel. Enoch's activity in the spirit was very different from Christ's. One went down on a mission of doom, the other went up, triumphing over all that kept men from receiving the mercy of God. And then Moffat goes on to talk about baptism here. Go back to our notes here. So basically, as we showed you the John Piper video, we saw Moffat's commentary. My suggestion is after you watch that Piper video, and it's 12 minutes, you can watch it on like double speed. There's no, it's pretty quick. You can watch it 6 minutes because it's mostly all graphics, so it's easy to follow if you wanted to watch the whole thing. But my suggestion there, if you add the Enoch option, in addition to the 3 interpretations that are in John Piper's video, I think you're going to find that the Enoch interpretation makes the most sense. The Noah option would have made sense if Noah were preaching to spirits in prison. However, we know that Noah was preaching to humans on earth. There's no record of Noah going down and preaching to the spirits in prison. So Enoch is the one who preached to the spirits in prison in the days of Noah. If we're taking votes here, I am sold on the Enoch interpretation. I appreciate Moffat's ability to just boldly put it directly in his translation. Again, whether or not there was any textual reason to do so or not, I think he's got the right interpretation there. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thanks for watching, and as always, until next time, contend earnestly for the faith which was once for all delivered to the saints, and God bless.